Welcome back to Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host.
Grandma Gail.
So, for everybody listening, remember to follow the show, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple, whatever streaming platform. Please press the little follow in the corner. And if you already follow, rate us 5 stars, leave a review. It makes a huge difference to the show. Grandma, I'm really excited for today's episode.
I know you are. You've been talking about it for the entire weekend.
I like your earrings, by the way. They're little love hearts.
I decided I'm wearing my mother's jewelry today. I'm wearing her wedding band as well.
Oh my, I've never seen you wear a wedding ring.
I got married. She got married in this, and then I really got married in it. It's just a round gold band. And the funny thing is, I was thinking about that with all the talk about rings now that you see on Instagram and everything with all the fancy things. You're not supposed to, well, at least in the Jewish religion, you're supposed to be married in a circle.
Yes,
married in. Then after that, well, I think I put this away for
Right.
the 60 years that I've had it. And she was married 65 years. So it worked, the wedding band.
Okay,
So
nice.
I just was in the mood this morning. I was looking at something else and I felt like connecting with her.
Yeah, well, with our guest today, we're going to be talking all about
That
love and dating, and
Right.
relationships, and sex. So, Candace Bushnell, who wrote Sex in the City, is
Right.
going to be joining us later in the episode. She basically changed the way we talk about dating and sex.
Well, the TV,
in
about
the
the TV
media.
and the media,
Yeah.
because really that wasn't really a groundbreaking series at the moment. I think it was 1998.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
went into the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It started as a column that Candace wrote about her dating and sex life, where she, was like, and just like that, he came home,
Right.
whatever. And
You could have written one of those, Kim. You're very good at all these millions of dates you've had.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll relate with her on
Yes,
that one.
you could write a book or a column as well.
I want to know, like, is that the way to talk about your dating experiences in 2025? Because now we basically do it on a podcast rather than a column. So
Exactly.
what is the best way to do it? I wanted to ask her. But at the time, she was writing super candidly and about dating her 20s and 30s. And now she's writing about dating and sex in her 60s.
Yeah.
And she just did it in this new article, which we're going to talk to her about. It's called Sex After 60 in Sag Harbor. It's a New York Magazine piece, part of The Cut. So we're going to talk all about that with her. But now let's talk about us.
I think we have to talk about us.
Let's recap July 4th weekend.
Exactly. Well, we had a great weekend. The weather for the first time in the Northeast was pretty good. Of course, in other places that had terrible floods, and we send our heartfelt sympathy out to Texas, where we keep watching it. And Kimmy had posted something today as well. It's just awful. And it isn't the first time. I was reading an article about 20 years ago. They had another catastrophic flood in the same area.
So how are you not prepared?
Well, I don't. The weather people did exactly the right thing. I think they did not put an upgraded system in the community, and that's going to, of course, get investigated. That's not our business. One man. I was watching the TV last night. He's not a firefighter, but he goes into these areas to rescue people. He rescued 165 people from this flood. 165.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great swimmer. He evidently has won all kinds of things in college and high school on swimming, and he could swim against the current.
Oh, wow.
And he was able to save these people. And of course, he's being deemed a hero, as all these responders. These first responders are amazing to do what they've been doing.
I'm really happy he was there, because I can barely tread water in the deep end.
Well, that's exactly right. Well, you can. But the truth is, these people have, amazing skills, and our hearts go out, and we're all wishing them well. And of course, the families who suffered so terribly, we're thinking of you all the time.
Yeah.
But from our point of view, where we were, the weather was beautiful.
Yeah.
We were very lucky in the Northeast. So
But you don't go to the beach or anything, so.
No, I don't sit in the sun anymore.
Yeah.
Because the doctors have now told me that all my problems that I have are caused by the years from sitting in the sun when I was young.
Because we know this. Yet I sit in
You
the
get
sun.
addicted. I know, and I keep telling you don't do it because
Can't you do it safely?
I don't think so. I think even if you use all these wonderful, what is it, SP 50s and 60s or 30s, whatever they have in the ointments, I still think that certain amount of rays go through, and it's proven if the longer you live, you're going to get affected by some form of skin cancer, and it's just a fact of life. So the best thing is what we now do with children. They wear the floppy hats. If you go to in the sun, there's no reason why you can't go to the beach and stick your feet in the water, but wear a hat. And try to keep your arms covered with those swim shirts, which everybody now.
But like, I'm not going to the beach as a 29-year-old woman and wearing a swim shirt when my friends are in bikinis.
Well, your friends shouldn't be in it either. It
That is
doesn't matter.
so wild.
Everybody really should be watching themselves. I know that everybody's playing golf with these special
Yeah,
shirts
but
now.
sports versus like you're trying to look good on the beach and get a like you just look better with a tan.
Yeah, well, now.
Wait, do you want to hear something crazy? I don't know if
Yes.
it's hilarious or
Or it's terrible.
terrible. So when Zach was with us earlier in the week, we I gave him sunscreen and I
Right.
was using it myself, like a spray-on sunscreen, what I thought was sunscreen.
Oh, no.
But
It was perfect.
when my friends came a few days later, I handed it to them and they were like, "This isn't sunscreen. This is thermal water."
Oh, you were supposed to be
Which
spraying.
is really why does that even exist? I think it's just water in a can to like cool
Keep you
off.
cool.
So, but like, who has that in a sunscreen
You
bottle?
did. Oh, in a
It
sunscreen
looks
bottle.
like a sunscreen bottle.
Yeah, well, you just didn't read the labels.
Yeah, but I just thought like everything from this brand was sunscreen. So we've been
Okay.
the whole weekend we were spraying ourselves.
You
We were
felt
like,
so-
we're so good. We were like protecting ourselves. We were just spraying ourselves with water.
Well, you didn't read. The two of you
I guess.
really
Well,
fell
he
down on the
had
job.
a terrible red stripe across his stomach. And I was like, why did you burn like that? And so he was already at this bachelor trip that he went on. And I texted him, we weren't using sunscreen. And he was like, so it's your fault.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's always your fault.
That's
Or
how
my
it goes.
fault. Or my fault. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that was
That was
now
your-
I know what thermal water is and to use.
Well,
Sunscreen.
you've got to. That's just to refresh yourself, like you have those little portable fans that you can walk around with. But anyway, it was a beautiful weekend.
We were both at the same restaurant Friday.
Oh, that was the funniest. This was a restaurant. Well, we can say the name,
Yeah.
Crazy Pizza. It's a chain, I believe, and
There's
it
one in
just
the city.
and I think they're across the country. I
Oh,
think there are
really?
several of them. Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
It was I'll tell you, the place itself is so much fun. I now know that older people, anybody I think over 50, should not go on a Friday or Saturday night. I
No.
think
I
you
am
thought it was loud too.
in my 20s, and I would say, like, it was really, really hard to have a conversation.
Well, the funny thing is we walked in a little before you did. So there were two choices. For some reason, the captain, who was very, very nice, and matter of fact, he brought us over
He
champagne
was
because
good looking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
he forgot to bring my daughter-in-law a drink. She was sitting there, and finally, I think the waiter forgot to put it in. So he brought everybody champagne,
Oh,
which was
that's
very
nice.
sweet. But instead of putting us to when you walk in, we should have gone to the right.
Correct.
He
'Cause it
took
wasn't
us to
as
the
loud.
left. There was no music over there. We were in the room with the DJ.
It was loud no matter what, but the room we were in with
Right.
the DJ,
It was
we were right
intense.
next to each other.
I know, that was so funny.
Was
They didn't know we were related, so
No,
they
no.
just. But the rest of the restaurant was busy on the other side too.
yeah. I just think what this restaurant is perfect for is
20
post
something
grad, 22-year-olds.
screaming and yelling
Yes.
with the music.
Yes.
I agree.
Who don't want to have a
But-
conversation. They just want to
correct.
drink and party and
right.
have people.
And there were a couple of
Yeah.
large tables doing that.
Yeah.
So it was very appropriate
Great
for them.
I would have loved it 10 years ago.
Right. Well, your grandfather, I think, couldn't hear a thing. So I think I told him to turn his hearing aids off
Yeah.
because he was like in an echo chamber. He didn't, but anyway, he couldn't hear anything. And we were in the corner, so it wasn't as bad as where you were sitting.
Okay.
It was terrible. The poor people next to us were on a date. They were
That's
older.
not a date place.
And he leaned leaned over to Poppy and said, "What is this?" He's trying to be romantic. He
I
ordered a
know.
bottle of wine. I could see what was going on, the
Yeah.
dynamic, and his evening was over.
Like, I'm not against a vibey place,
Yeah,
but there's a difference between creating a vibe in, like, a pretty restaurant and
right.
a buzz.
And it was very pretty.
It just needed to be 50%
Less.
lower.
Right. I mean, I could almost see this in Montauk on the beach
Like,
if
maybe.
everybody's partying. But this was
Not a
in an
restaurant.
area. This and the food, I have to tell you, my salad and the pasta that I shared with my daughter-in-law were absolutely delicious.
Yeah, the food was, like,
It was
good.
very, very good. I would go back there, but not on a
No.
weekend.
No.
No,
Do
you're
you
not.
not like that every night?
No, no, I think just on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and they also had saxophone players
Yeah.
blasting music. So if you did,
Yeah.
and the pizza guys were twirling the bread. I mean, it was a fun place.
I don't know. We were in and out, by the way, like, it was quick, and
Right, we got out. We
were
didn't
happy
get
about that.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, then we just went home, we, like, watched Parent Trap, it was
Oh,
just a
gosh.
chiller night.
Okay.
And then the next day, we went to 2 barbecues that friends were
But
having.
didn't you go on a boat?
Oh, yeah, we had a boat day.
That was a beautiful
Boat
day.
and then 2 barbecues.
Right, you were very
It was
busy
that
that
was a
day.
busy day. That was nice, no complaints.
So the girls had a good time.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Always nice to
great.
catch up with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, one's a psychiatrist, one's a therapist.
Oh
so
my
that's
God, they
my
could have analyzed. Oh,
heaven.
that's your heaven.
Yeah,
You died, went to heaven
Yeah,
with
yeah,
these two
yeah.
girls.
exactly. I'm like, "This was my dream last night. What did this mean?" And I
Right.
can ask right when I wake up in the morning, and it's excellent.
And it's very cool. They both were in the same class as you at Cornell, the
Yeah.
same sorority, and they're
Yeah.
both very lovely, successful young women. So we're
Yeah.
very proud of them.
Yeah, so it was nice to all be together. But again, like, chiller barbecues, 20 people. I
Yeah.
didn't go to anything with 100 people.
Right.
So
I
kinda
did.
Yeah, you did.
I went to some, actually,
I haven't gotten the debrief.
well, it was somebody's big birthday, one of many big birthdays, but it was a big birthday for her. And I must say, unfortunately, the cocktail time, she has beautiful gardens. So everybody was outside looking at her gardens and whatever and talking and chatting. And it was very, very nice. And then all of a sudden, a cloud came off the ocean and you could see the sky getting darker and darker.
Did
So
it rain?
it stormed.
remember
Oh
that.
my gosh, it stormed Thursday night.
Oh,
So
yeah, I
don't
didn't
you
go
remember?
out
Oh, it was terrible.
Mm.
And they had a tent. The tent was absolutely
So
magnificent.
they were prepared for rain.
Oh, they were always having a tent.
Okay.
When you have that amount of people in an outdoor venue, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
So they had the most. It was like a Moroccan ceiling. So there were like little gold stars and in blue panels. It was beautiful.
Did
It
you
was.
take pictures?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
There were people taking pictures, but you
I
know
would
what?
have liked to see
It was so beautiful, and the people who did the flowers and the catering they were top notch. Everything
They
was
have a
really
band?
perfect. They had a band in the beginning, but they played, which of course for this crowd was perfect. They played all the music from Frank Sinatra.
I would love that.
Yeah, it was very, very
That's
retro,
also my vibe.
very lovely. And then
So
the
you can
best
hear each
part.
other over the.
Oh yes,
Okay,
which
great.
is very nice. And the table, I must say, she's very creative anyway. But the people who helped her, they were very smart because the most frustrating thing to sit around a large table when you have 8 or 10 people at a table is when you have a center arrangement and you
Yes.
can't see across the side.
Yeah.
So she had about 6 or 7 low, little, beautiful, almost off gold, like almost like a bronzy color
Okay.
decanters, and she had white flowers and all of them around it. And then there was a mirror top which was placed on, and with little bronze votive candles.
Mhm.
Very beautiful. The whole setting was beautiful, and it reflected the sky. You know, the top of the tent. It was terrific, and everything was perfect. But at the end of the evening, she sang a song.
No.
But it wasn't that I don't.
she
It
sing it?
wasn't her. No, it wasn't her voice. She
Oh,
did a karaoke.
like lip synced it.
Right. And
Yeah.
it was terrific about
what?
getting old. And
What,
she was,
what song was
I
that?
don't remember, but it's a very famous song and I can't think of it now. She was great.
That's hilarious. That is something I would do.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And then she had a fabulous saxophone player from New Orleans on,
wow.
who I
Like
had,
a wedding.
oh, yeah. Oh, better than a wedding.
Yeah.
I said this is a waste. We could have had a wedding in here in 2 seconds. It was really spectacular.
Wow.
So she had John Baptiste, who is one of the foremost jazz. I had actually seen him. He had
Oh, he's, like,
performed.
famous?
He performed at Brown's graduation.
Oh,
So I had just
yeah.
seen him.
Right.
And so Poppy was glad because we left a little early. And
Did,
so
did you say hi or no?
To him,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
He
I don't
goes
know.
on with an entourage,
Okay.
and he didn't know me personally. I didn't know him at the
You could say
graduation
I
either.
saw. I don't put it past you to say I just saw you.
Well, we weren't that close,
Yeah.
so but he's wonderful. I mean, he's just terrific.
So you Irish exited. You don't say goodbye to the host.
No, just say thank you the next day. We
Yeah.
left about 10 minutes before he was finished.
Yeah.
We figured, you know what, this was it was raining.
Yeah.
And
it was
they
windy
had the
outside
golf
with the
carts come up and
cars.
get you to the cars. It's the car situation that's a disaster.
Totally.
So, anyway, it was a great evening. And then we had other things over the weekend, which were equally as nothing as spectacular as that, but it was pretty cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Great
we had-
July 4th weekend.
Yes.
Okay, so now before our guest gets here, Grandma, did you watch Sex in the City when it was on?
I did. And of course, I loved it. Because, and you know what was so much fun about it? Besides the sex scenes that were supposed to be the story of Candace's life,
Right.
which were very avant-garde at that particular moment
Yeah.
on television.
Yeah.
The costumes that these girls wore,
Right.
they were fabulous. And
Yeah.
everybody wanted to emulate the Manola Blahnik heels and the skirts and the different outfits that the women in the show wore. And the men were handsome too. Everybody was beautiful. There was nobody that wasn't absolutely
So true.
perfection in the show.
I think Sarah Jessica Parker got to keep all of the clothing for the archive.
Did she
in
really?
her own personal archive. It was in her contract.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, her clothes were absolutely the best.
Yeah, so cool. Just like
She was.
cool.
Whoever
style.
did, and I think she got all kinds of awards. The
Yeah,
dress
I'm forgetting
designer
her
who
name,
did, I
yeah.
forgot her name,
Yeah.
but they were terrific. They were it was a very different, highly styled show at
Yes.
that particular time. I don't think
Okay.
anything was in the same category,
Mhm,
really.
mhm.
So, it was fun, and
So at the time, we'll ask her this too. Like it felt different than other shows out there. And,
yeah, well, she was the only one really doing that kind of subject matter.
right.
You know.
And it was on. I think it was the CW maybe or something. It was on a
No,
channel.
it was on regular channel. It was
Yeah.
on I don't know if
What
I think it was I think it was ABC. We'll ask
Okay,
her.
well, what? But anyway, now it's on streaming.
Yeah, well, that was good. There was no streaming in 1998, Kim.
Yeah, right. So obviously, I was 2 years old in 1998. I didn't watch it then, but I have binge watched it since. And we were saying this earlier, but like watching it from a perspective
Right.
in 2020 something, it still holds up in a lot of ways, but then also in a lot of ways, you, like, question it.
Yeah, it's a little cringeworthy, some of it now.
It is. It's some things are cringe, or you're just like, how was that okay?
Well, you know what? It probably wasn't okay, but we didn't have we weren't as sensitive to certain issues in
Right.
those days. So,
like the
it's
toxic
very,
relationship.
yeah, it's very hard. I often say this with other subjects as well. It's very hard to put your values from 2025 on something that happened in the 70s or
Right,
the 80s
right.
or the 90s, because it was a different outlook. Not that you're probably right in criticizing it, but at that particular moment in time, that was part of how society, for most of society, felt on different issues. So it'll
Or
be
one
interesting.
person's perspective. It's her stories, and like,
Well, it was
I think
her
people
story, but
really
she was
relate
the
it.
only one really talking about it the way she did.
Yeah, and I think why I'm gonna tell her this too, but why the show is and was so strong is like its relatability. Like
Right.
so many people watch
Especially for
it
young people.
for young women,
Right.
And also the discourse that's going on now still on social media is it's
Career
okay
versus.
to be single in your
Yeah,
30s.
that's
'cause
we've talked
they
about
weren't
that.
22 in this show. They
No.
were in their mid 30s, early 30s.
I don't know if they were they? Is that what they were
Yeah.
supposed to be?
So that's a whole thing. Like whenever people are feeling bad about being single, I see so many women say, "Well, Carrie Bradshaw was 35 or whatever it was." So
Well,
that's
she really was speaking to a very particular audience at that time, which is now the entire female population. But
Right.
when she did it, she was really groundbreaking.
yeah. Okay, so let's play a game. Should we bring it back? These are Sex in the City related, so
Okay.
really from the 90s. Smoking in restaurants. Carrie was always smoking.
I know. I'm glad we're not. I don't want to bring it back.
Let's not bring it back.
No.
Landlines.
Well, I
still
still
have
have a
one.
landline. I like a landline. And you know what happens if your cell goes out? I think at least every house should have at least one landline sitting somewhere like in a kitchen or a bedroom in
I guess
case
if
of an
your
emergency.
cell isn't working, you can technically call someone from your laptop or your
I know,
iPad.
but people over a certain age are not so flexible.
Okay,
The
that's
middle of the
fair.
night when usually an emergency
So
happens.
you're singing "Bring It Back," or it didn't go
Right,
away for
or
you,
I would
but
hope that no, it comes back a little bit. It's
yeah,
gone away a great deal.
yeah. Walking everywhere in heels, like Carrie was always in her
Right.
Manolos. Now I wear sneakers everywhere.
I wouldn't put a pair. I don't think I could walk. I actually, after COVID,
Mhm.
tried to put on the high heels again. I forgot how to walk in them.
Yeah,
So I'm not bringing those back. Whoever wants to wear them, I still think they're beautiful.
I love wearing heels
You look
to like
very
an
pretty in
event if
them.
I'm getting in and out of a car. But she
Right.
used to walk everywhere in
Yeah.
heels, so I'm
Well, so
not.
did a lot of people.
I don't want to bring that back. Breaking up on a Post-it note.
I think that's so rude.
Horrible.
I think
That
that's
was
so
such a funny
terrible.
story from the series.
I think that's so terrible.
Not bring it
Don't
back.
bring that back.
The tulle skirts like she wore in her
Oh, I
opening
love it.
scene.
Well, actually, that came back again a couple of years ago with Christian Dior. So
Oh, yeah.
they never really go away. They have a little quiet moment, and then we put it away, and then we bring them back,
Right.
maybe with a
I
little
would be
different
down to
flair.
bring it back if it's not super puffy.
No, you're right. Well, they're not super puffy now,
Yeah.
and you wear them with a blazer or you wear
Right.
it with
Oh yeah,
a
mom would
t-shirt.
wear them sometimes.
Yeah, because those were great.
Cosmopolitans is like the drink of the summer.
I still like it.
I never drink a Cosmo.
Well, they're very sweet.
I don't
So
want to do that.
if you nurse it and it looks
Yeah,
pretty at the
it does
table.
look pretty. But there are other cocktails for summer, I feel like now.
Okay.
Nameplate necklaces.
But I
like-
don't think we should say we can't bring it back.
No, like you
The
can have a
Cosmo,
Cosmo. I'm
right.
just saying, like I feel like they always
might
go
not
out for
be-
Cosmo.
It might not be the drink of this summer.
Yeah. Nameplate necklaces. Like she would always wear a necklace that said Carrie on it.
No, I wouldn't bring that back.
I'm not obsessed either.
No.
Okay, Candace Bushnell, welcome to Excuse My Grandma.
I am so excited to be here because we know each other
We
from
sort of
Palm
know-
Beach.
We really know each other from Palm Beach. I used to see her with her dogs.
Yes.
And I didn't know, I knew who she was. I didn't go up to her, but
Yeah.
now I'm so excited to see her close up.
Well,
She's
obviously,
beautiful,
yes,
beautiful.
beautiful, and we know you from the iconic Sex and the City, and now you're talking about dating and sex in your 60s. So I'm really excited to get into all of those experiences and your piece. But first, gotta say, huge fan. I was just telling you before. Saw your one woman show. We were saying I watched Sex and the City. I was 2 when it came out, but I feel like it's a
Sad.
rite of passage at even up until today when you hit 20 or whatever it
Yes,
is to
that's-
rewatch and binge it.
Yes. Well, it's something that women have been watching. It's really when you go to college. It's
Yeah,
like
right.
18, 19, 20. You've arrived in a strange place. You don't know
Mhm.
anybody. And then somebody's like, oh, let's watch the show, Sex in the City. Oh, it's all about single women in New York. Okay, great. And then, so it's really a rite of passage. And now it's on Netflix.
Right.
So in a way, it's actually bigger than,
Bigger than
ever.
ever.
Yeah.
But it's always been something that it's a perennial. It was on when it was on DVDs. They were watching it on DVDs in their college dorms. So, and it's fantastic.
Well, I watched it as a young married. Well, I wasn't a young married. I was already a grandma. I wasn't a young married.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in 1998. But when you did it, it was really, because I watch the actual thing every week, it was really groundbreaking. I mean, it was something different that
Yes.
was on television, especially for women.
Yes.
It really gave women a voice in a sophisticated way to be recognized as a person who worked and who had a career, and of course the sex that encouraged everybody to sort of tune in. But there was a big message in
Yes.
the show.
Yes. Well, it's so interesting to me because I always say that New York City is one of the few places where women have traditionally been able to come here. I mean, really, even since the 1920s. I mean, the flappers were really women who left the farm and came to work in the big city. But we have a tradition of groundbreaking women here who worked and were really successful and made money. So
The difference was having a successful career and integrating it into their married life if they chose to be married.
Right.
And that was the big difference in New York. You could do both, sometimes not so successfully, but you had the opportunity. Whereas in a lot of small town places, or you weren't able to do it.
Yes,
So
you-
that
you-
was a
you
big
couldn't.
difference. So it was a
Right.
it was a sophisticated show that, everybody sort of got eventually, but it really was sort of focused to the girl who was working in a big city.
And like, yes,
Mhm.
single in your 30s. And like, do you remember the reaction that people had when it first well, I guess first with your column and then also when the show came out?
The column everybody was reading it.
Mhm.
And it was something that the reason why it ended up on TV was because people were faxing it to their friends in
Oh, okay.
the entertainment business in Los Angeles. And I had lots of offers. I mean, I had offers from 3 movie companies. HBO was interested, ABC was interested, Darren Star was interested. And I didn't really take any of it that seriously because, TV was different then.
Right.
And this is it's kind of hard to explain to people, but when the show came out, I mean, I was so much more interested in being, writing novels and winning the Pulitzer Prize than in having a hit TV show. Like
Right. And that's the
everybody,
goal now, I feel, for so many.
and now
storytellers.
that is
That
the
is the
goal for
Mhm.
people. But back then,
Right.
I mean, it really wasn't until the show had been on for a couple of years that, people told me like, "Oh, hey, this is a hit
Huh.
for
And it was making
HBO."
differences. I think it made a difference in young women's lives that they
Oh,
could
I think it did.
I really
It
do.
absolutely did.
100%,
But
it
you
still
know what?
does.
It did because it was authentic and it could be real. There wasn't all this pressure on it like, "Oh, we have to have this huge audience,
Right.
right away."
Mhm.
Back then it was just it was a great TV show. It was funny, it was really well written. It made sense. The episodes were the same structure. So it was just really, really good TV.
And you were involved in
And
the first 2 seasons? Or how
yes,
long were you
I
involved?
worked in the writer's room.
Oh,
And then I
amazing.
got a contract for $1 million to write novels. So I was like,
Yeah.
You were
bye.
gone.
bye-bye. I'm
And-
going to go and write novels.
Right.
Yeah.
So
No disrespect to the filmmaker or the TV makers and everyone who was involved, but I do think it went downhill after your stories weren't, like, as involved and after your input wasn't there. Like, that's just my opinion.
Well, yes. I mean, my feeling about it is, first of all, it takes so many people
Mhm.
to make a TV show.
Correct.
It takes, one person, to write a novel. So I'm really used to working by myself
Mhm.
all the time. But it takes so many people to make this TV show. And
And chemistry amongst the actors.
yes,
and all
chemistry
that.
amongst the actors.
Sometimes
So
it worked, sometimes it didn't. But
Exactly.
that's every show. I
But
mean,
also everybody who worked on the show,
Right.
they were so excited about it. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's on HBO. We
Mhm.
can do things differently." And, they did. And really that's the reason why the show is successful. Like all these people, they want to work on it. And you know what? It's hard. Like
Well,
you got to get up
Work.
really early. Sometimes you have to work all night. I'm like, maybe stay up all night, but I ain't working all night.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Which is
So better
very
life
extreme.
work-life
But-
balance now than those
but-
early years.
But it's, I'm grateful to
But it
all the
opened
people who,
opportunity.
want to do it. It's
Mhm,
fantastic.
mhm.
It's
Right.
wonderful.
And I must say, because it was on HBO, you could do a little bit more
Yes.
of the sexual
That's the nature of it.
exactly. That it was a little more. It was a little sexier. I mean, people would watch it, and it was titillating. It really
Oh, I'm
was.
glad.
No, it was. I still remember a couple of the scenes, and oh my gosh, this is on television.
Oh, I remember some Samantha scenes
Right.
where
She
I
was
like, that actually looks really fun.
Right.
Wonder
Yeah.
if I should try. And then I was like, no, I can't do like a chair
A
on the
swing.
bed.
She was
Oh,
on
the
swings, and
swing.
she
Like-
was always on a swing.
Yeah.
No, that's
But she
that's
was
too
taking-
complicated.
But she was really your character.
No,
I always
no,
thought.
Carrie.
Do you think it was Carrie or Samantha or a mixture?
No, that Carrie character, that was
your
my alter
all right.
ego. Yes.
Okay.
Speaking
Yes.
of, based off first impressions, what would you say we are? Which character?
Just characters. How would you
Carrie,
forget?
Samantha, Charlotte, or Miranda?
Well, I'm not even in any of those.
Well,
so-
everybody's
you're
always
obvious.
going to say that you're Charlotte because you have dark hair.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I feel like she's Charlotte. No,
no.
but the
No.
I'm maybe more Miranda.
interesting, like kind of to the point. No BS.
Yes, and she's a successful woman.
True.
Because of you.
No.
Yeah.
And you.
All right. But anyway,
I feel like
it's fine.
everyone wants to be Carrie because she's like.
Well,
the
she
star.
is the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most
Okay.
fashionable. Were you always into fashion also? Like, is that how it made its way into the show?
Yes, I was always into fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm still into it. Not as, I would say, as experimental as
Right.
Pat Field.
Mm-hmm.
I used to
That was
go.
the
Yeah, we were
costume.
trying to
We were
think.
trying to
Yes,
think.
and I
It
used
was
to go
fabulous.
to Pat Field when I first came to New York. And this was probably, I want to say it was like 1980, and she had a store on 8th Street, and they were so cool. Like, you knew, like, when you walked in that store, you were like, God, I hope they'll let me stay in here. I hope I'm cool enough
Yeah.
to like, buy something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
that was always
Part of you in a way. Yeah.
yeah, and but it's interesting because
She was more
Pat
writing. She was
didn't
writing.
work on the pilot, and
Oh.
when I look at the pilot, I'm always like, I remember the clothes were like not right on the pilot, and
Oh, wow.
and I was like,
watched.
I was like, this doesn't. And then Pat started working, and
Yeah.
then that's when
That's when it
That's so
exploded.
crazy. So you talk about the dating scene in New York, the Hamptons, in your 60s, which in a way is just as groundbreaking as back then talking about dating and sex in your 20s and 30s because we don't hear about that in the media that often, what that's like as a
Well,
mature woman.
Well, Jeff
yes,
Bezos.
that's because, well, for a first of all, I've just been really, writing about basically things that are happening at
Your
the
life.
age that I'm in. So I did write a book called Is There Still Sex in the City, which was all about being in your 50s. And at the end of that book, I was so happy to be 60 because, a lot of bad things happen to people in their 50s. Like a lot of people get divorced. Usually, like a parent could die. Somebody is going to die.
Mhm.
It's going to be like a little traumatic. Your kids
Right.
maybe are going to leave home.
Mhm.
And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to get a dog and I'm going to be creative and I'm going to live the life I always wanted to live. And so maybe that's your 60s. And then
It doesn't happen.
I think the big difference between, for me, dating like in my 20s and 30s and dating now in my 60s is like when I was in my 20s and 30s, it was like we all put up with a lot more stuff
Mhm.
than women would put up with today. Like, for instance, the ick.
Yeah.
Okay? Back then, if you got the ick, you were like,
Kept your mouth shut.
you kept your mouth shut. You were like, you got over the ick. You just
You
had
to.
to get over the ick.
Yeah.
You kind of had like no choice
Why
mean,
is that?
it
because
was
you
a
didn't
man-
have
yeah.
the financial choices.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, women really couldn't make it on their own.
Right.
So it does come down a lot to finances. But
Mhm.
so, like you would just like, you'd get over the ick. And, men, they're pretty disrespectful towards women.
Mhm.
And, over the years, I've heard a lot of male conversations that are quite disrespectful to women. I'm sure that you have
Mhm.
as
At
well.
any age, like the 77-year-old you were talking about in your story, who really was so violating in every way.
But
Yeah, but
but
he's
not really
entitled.
though.
Not really. That's
You
the way
see,
they
you have
think.
to understand that the way that that man was behaving
Right.
was the way he thought that men behave.
Right.
Mm.
Like he really is not trying to be disrespectful
right.
or anything. He's actually trying to do what he thinks a decent man does, like
Yeah.
pick you up, ask you out right away, like be sort of aggressive about asking somebody out because that's what men were told to do.
Right.
And so they did it. And and sort of like taking control of a situation. Those are all things that men
Of a certain age.
yes, of a certain age are taught to do.
Right.
Younger guys
Right.
don't do that.
Because they were brought
Like,
up differently.
They're
too.
brought up totally different. Like I've
Right.
got this friend who's 24. He asked me so many questions
Yeah.
about myself and like
You mean
what do
he
you
just
think
doesn't
about
talk about
this?
himself the whole date?
He does well, it's not a date because
Oh,
he's
whatever.
inappropriately young,
Okay,
but
fair.
he is a friend.
Right.
And, he's much more curious
Mhm.
about other people than, this man in his 70s is. But you know what? That's how a lot of
Right.
guys of that age are because they were brought up that way.
Right.
And we're not trying to change them. Like we can't expect them
You
to learn.
cannot
Right.
change them.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know, like, you can't change a
Any
man.
man.
You can't.
You can't change a man.
No.
We've discussed this many times.
Right.
When they're 30. If
That's
you don't
true.
like the habits that they are when they're 30, they're just going to get worse.
Exactly.
So don't ever think that they're going to change. You have to take the person for what they are.
Mhm.
yes.
I have so many friends. They're a little older than Candace, but who are unfortunately single, either divorced or
Well, it's
with.
not unfortunately single. In
Well,
those cases,
no,
it's
no. I
unfortunate.
think some of
You
them
know,
are.
like-
They didn't want to be
Yeah,
single
yeah.
for some reason. Their husband passed away or whatever, and then a couple have gotten divorced.
Mhm.
And it's very hard dating out there
Mhm.
because they would like a lot of women would still like the romance, no sex, but the romance.
Right.
And the guy they're not going to go out at 65 or 70 with somebody 40, so they're going out with 80-year-olds, and it's very different. It's so you have to understand each part of dating is different, and the best part is when you're in your 20s and 30s. Never think it's going to be better
Yes,
as it goes on.
exactly. I mean, that is something that, and I know there are exceptions
Of
to
course.
this, and there are people, and there are people who say like, "Oh, sex, it gets so much better
Oh,
the older you get." I'm
baloney.
like, if you feel like having sex, do it
Right.
because it's really, in general, I don't really see it getting a lot better. I mean,
Not when everything's hanging down.
no. I mean,
was the
that's like
answer?
that's
It's all
enough.
hanging
That's like,
down. Whether
know,
it's the man
I
or the
know.
female, they're all hanging.
Exactly. It's everything's hanging. It's like,
Nothing is
you know,
cute.
'Cause a lot of
I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
a lot of my friends, like, they'll say to me, "Oh, if I go over to his house after a date, like, what if I'm in a position where, like, we have to have sex? Like, is it too early? Or, like, I want to, but, are they gonna lose their interest in me?" Things like that, and your answer is do it no matter what?
No, that actually is not my
That's not
answer.
her
That's
answer.
no, that's actually a joke that I made because at one time there was a 3-date
Right.
rule, and
Yeah.
you could
Yeah,
figure
you
out like,
used to follow
hey,
that
I'm
3-date
interested
rule.
in you, but I'm going to wait at least 3 dates. And at one time, you easily would get those 3 dates, so you could get another.
Mhm.
Now it's like everybody goes to you after the first date. I mean, it's like there is no second date.
Right.
So, it's
Either
like-
if you don't like them, move on.
but that's been the conundrum really since the 1980s.
Mm.
When if you go back to his house and I
Yeah.
mean, listen, sometimes people just they want to go back to someone's house because they want to make out with them, hang out with them a
Yeah.
bit, not necessarily
Have sex.
have sex.
Mhm.
And that used to be like quite possible.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
Yeah.
you had to you had to judge. I mean, you never knew. it could end up being a really bad
Yeah, but
situation.
you can
But
set a
one
boundary.
thing that women used to do, they used to tell each other. So if there was a guy who was like badly behaved,
Mhm.
like everybody knew
Yeah.
him, and everybody
Player.
like knew this guy and would tell each other, "Listen, this happened to me."
Right.
I mean, that's really in a way the foundation of Sex in the City.
True.
It is women saying
Helping
like,
other women.
this guy's great, and this guy don't go to his house. He's
Yeah.
gonna do this, and then some other woman's like, "Oh my god, same thing happened to me," and then they're like,
Well, do you know this Facebook group, like Men Not to Date in New York or something like that?
I don't know it, but
Yeah, it's
I do know of these
yeah, things
things.
like
Like,
this.
yes, it's like,
And
are you
similar
dating? Are
idea.
we dating?
Oh, are we dating the same man? That's what
Yes.
it's called. And
Yes.
yeah, people write in it and they talk about the horror story dates that they went on and but it's less about small things and more when there's actually
Right.
someone being a creep.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think dating when you're like in your situation, I think it's harder because first of all, there are fewer nice men out there. And then you have the issue that a lot of nice men would who are, let's say, in their 70s don't want to date someone in their 60s.
No, they
wanna
don't.
date someone in their 40s.
Yes.
And
And
it becomes difficult.
well, this is one of the things that dating apps and technology has really, really changed.
Mhm.
At one time, if you were divorced in your 50s or 60s, chances are you would meet somebody else who was your age,
Right.
and they would be wanting to go out with
You.
of
Right.
somebody of the same age, because they didn't have access. Someone who's 20 years younger is the age of their friends'
Children.
kids
Mhm.
or their kids, and they don't have access
Right.
to people who are 20 years younger except socially, and it's frowned upon.
Right.
But with dating apps and technology, you have access to people who you never would have had access before. I mean, I have guys who are, eh, 30, 40 years younger who I've matched with
Mhm.
Right.
on
Right.
dating apps.
Because
You
it's
know,
personalities and likes
Is it
and
appropriate?
dislikes.
No,
Right.
but at the same time, it's like there's a real crossover of ages that
Mhm.
didn't exist
Yeah.
before.
Right.
True.
And a lot of like, it was like that guy they tried to put up for the Golden Bachelor,
Oh.
and they
I
had to
was
say,
gonna bring this up with you.
and he was like, I won't date anybody under, anybody over 60. Because in his mind, like 60 is a number that a lot of guys, they can't wrap their heads around it. Like they
But it
cannot.
makes no sense because why are you going on the Golden Bachelor if the whole idea is to date more mature women?
Probably
and
because
He wanted the money.
he wants the money.
fame
That's
or whatever,
exactly.
but-
I mean, it's not
He
very
wants the
typi-
money.
But now that he
money
said
and
this
publicity.
quote on a podcast or wherever he said it, like, shouldn't ABC
I
like,
think they
remove
did
him?
fire him.
Oh, they did?
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like I just read
Yeah.
something.
Maybe. I don't know because I
But-
feel like that's so against the whole franchise. That's the whole point
Well, it's that particular
of that show.
right.
But when you're saying, like, dating is bleak as you're getting older,
So I actually don't find it bleak.
your stories certainly were exciting. So that's not bleak.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're interesting men, but they're just not. They're not for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
forget also, Carrie, I'm thinking.
Candace.
Candace is in a position, she's an accomplished author. She's economically self-sufficient and she's beautiful. So she has lots of pluses that a lot of women do not have
Mhm.
at her age. So if she doesn't like somebody, she doesn't have to put up with any of the bullshit. I don't have to put up with any of the bullshit. If I met somebody, I'm poo-poo. I'm not meeting
Yeah,
anybody.
what?
I'm married for 900 years. But there are people out there that are not as fortunate. And those people end up they're more subservient to the male sex than we would be.
But for those, like, holding out for
It's
the
not
right
even
fit,
holding out.
like, how do you stay hopeful?
Okay, first of all, men are men.
Right.
All right.
They don't change.
They behave a certain way. They have a certain mentality. call it testosterone.
Mhm.
They have a different hormone. We have estrogen.
Mhm.
Right.
They have testosterone. When you go through menopause, you realize you've had estrogen glasses on your whole life, and
Yeah.
you're like, they're
And
off.
They're off.
Now I see things clearly,
Okay.
and whatever.
It's different.
So it's freeing. It's very, very freeing. But men, they think,
With their
behave very much alike. There are all of these things on social media where they talk about things like, men by nature are not leaders. And that is true.
Mm.
They always tend to coalesce around like one horrible man.
Yeah.
Like, why? Yeah.
They're fantasizing
And-
that that's them.
And they're, I mean, they're not really leaders. And, that's why the army exists, and they listen to what other men tell them to do. So there's a very different mentality. And a friend of mine, she hadn't dated for a while. She said, I'm going to get married. This is going to be my year to get married.
Okay.
Well, she met up with a matchmaker. The matchmaker fixed her up with a guy. On paper, he seemed absolutely great. He had a couple of houses. Not that that's important. And they were sort of, whatever. But he owned real estate.
Mhm.
And he was divorced. And he was looking to get married. And he met her, and they seemed to hit it off. And he said, I want to marry you. And then she spent a weekend with him, and she realized, like, he gets all of his news from Joe Rogan.
Oy.
Okay. She said, he's a Republican.
Uh-oh.
He's on his phone all the time. He actually, where his real estate is, you can't get around without a car, and he won't lend me a car.
It's getting worse.
And I was like, but you know what? This is a straight man
Right. There are not that many around.
of,
That ilk.
of a certain age, of that ilk. Like that's
Like a
that.
Mr. Biggest, as you would say.
But it's a certain type. That's what men are like. And if you
Yeah.
don't like that, then don't date.
Right.
That's
Don't-
honestly
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that sounds kind of harsh, but
No.
like this idea of, oh, there's this fantasy man, like you read romance, and
I keep telling
romance
Kim, there is none of that. That's
it's
fantasy.
all about a woman's idea of what she wants a man to be.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with what men are really like.
Yeah. So the girls who are going out looking for those guys, like, are they wasting their time at the bar, like, waiting
Yes,
for him to walk up
probably.
to them?
I'm sure they're having a nice cocktail and hopefully talking to people and being out,
Yeah.
which is really the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Right. True. I think also, side note, people really want to be like you. They want, especially aspiring storytellers, like their goal is, I'm going to tell my dating stories. Like, how many dating podcasts are out there? I really feel like it's all mirrored off of your original concept. Do you think being a writer or a columnist is still the way to get your story across? Or what do you think the best medium to do that is now?
Well, my advice on this, and I always say this, go with the newest technology because that's going to be the technology that's going to be of the future. Like writing books,
Mhm.
yes, I'm probably, will write another book and probably will write another novel because it's something that I'm interested in doing.
Yeah.
But, as a business to go into, I don't know. Who knows if it will be around
That's right.
in 50
Like newspapers.
years. It's like
newspapers.
magazines and
How many
newspapers
people?
are
Magazines
gone.
are gone.
Yes, but
People are shopping online.
But
This is
people
something
do still,
Right.
work. I guess it's all content,
exactly.
Yeah.
really. So I would say, it's like you work on your content, and then you see where it goes in
Yeah.
terms of
I
technology.
Exactly.
Like it's a point of view,
Mhm.
it's a voice, And, artists do the same thing. They have their point of view, they have their voice. So it's really working on your content and making your content, individual and you.
And it'll get picked up somewhere.
Yes.
Because
And
if it's
then-
good,
Yeah.
if it's good, it gets picked up.
Yeah.
It might
Yes.
not be on the normal mediums that we know, but whatever it is at that particular moment,
Yeah.
if it's well done.
We have a few minutes. I want to do a quick rapid fire from our Ask Grandma Anything. People wrote in questions that we can all answer together.
Right. Oh.
A lot, not even knowing that you were coming on. So I know that this really is something women are curious about. Somebody said 75 and starting over. How? Dating advice for meeting someone if you're a woman in her 40s. Is 37 too old to start dating? How do I start? Dear God, send help. I'm 55, but not at all acting like 55. Like so many questions around, is it too late for me? How do I start? Candace, do you want to?
Yeah, let
Go
Candace
ahead.
go.
Well, and I've actually been saying this for years. It's really important for women to know how to be single and in a relationship, because chances are, the way life is now, there are going to be times when you're not with somebody and times when, you are with someone. So I would say, the important thing is to focus on making your life as good as you can make it, on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And let the other parts maybe come naturally.
Grandma?
Well, you know my feeling. I'm getting to believe that arranged marriages are getting better and better when you're young.
Oh, yes,
I'm really beginning to think that because for whatever
get
reason,
that.
I really think families know more than the young person about who's really good in the long run. I see too many of the young girls looking for something that's not realistic, and I've said this
Mhm.
to you often.
Yes.
It's fairy tale nonsense. You have to have somebody who's smart, who can make a living, who can be a good parent if you want to have children. You might not choose to have children, so that's something you discuss prior. But if it is, you have to find someone who's a good role model for that. So there are prerequisites. It's not because the sex part and whether he's handsome or whether she's beautiful is fleeting. So I really am getting to think that the best romance is the first romance when you're young, not the first date, but the first real romance and the first real commitment to a relationship. And that should be your focus. If that doesn't work out for whatever reason, there are many reasons, then and I hope you've done something in your own life that you are fulfilling yourself, which is so important and which Candace is really saying. I think you have to identify what you like to do and do it to the best of your ability. Now, I'm speaking from my point of view. People listen to us. I never did that. I had a family. My life revolved around the children and around my husband, but I always had my own life. I always did philanthropy. I taught school a little bit when my kids were little. I did remedial reading. I did it voluntarily. I didn't make money. Thank heavens I didn't need to have a job for financial reasons, but I always try to give back to the community. And I think people have to find something in their own life that they're good at, whether it be raising money for their church or for a community service, a food kitchen, someplace. Go ahead and do something that's strictly your own. And then everything else will sort of fall into place. But I really do think the young women today, especially, are fantasizing about what relationship should be. So I wish everybody would sort of get back to reality. I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime.
I think that's actually a good point. And also, I feel like I know so many young women in their 20s and late 20s, 30s. They want to be with a guy and they can't find one. And I feel like if you want, if you are looking for that kind of relationship in your life, you should be able to find it.
Of
And
course.
so that's always frustrating to me, is that, women can't
Because I don't
find
think
this.
they
And
know
even
themselves.
when I watch like Married at First Sight,
Yeah.
it's like, what's wrong with these guys?
Yeah. The reality show is a whole nother podcast that we have to like debrief. But I think just based off my own experience, it's like not only those things on paper, but also that like romantic connection. I'm not necessarily saying fireworks or a spark, but like something else that you can't really put into words.
And I do understand and totally agree with you on that
Yeah.
because one of the things I found that's the biggest difference between dating now and dating like back in, the
old days.
90s
Mhm.
and dating now.
Yeah.
It used to be so easy to make a connection with
It's
someone,
insane.
and now it's almost that connection is what seems impossible for people to do.
True.
And I don't know if
Too
there's
many
too many
rules. There are too many rules.
too
They're
many
first they're
distractions.
steady, then they're relationships, then they're not in a relationship, then they're committed. If
Like,
they
why
go through,
can't it be the 90s rom-com or the early 2000s
well, there's no wrong
rom-com?
because those didn't exist. So forget that. Those are made up in some man's head in some studio.
Whatever.
But I think what's happened is everybody now feels they have to meet a certain schedule, a certain point
Or you
in a
have to get it right
relationship.
the first time, so
Yeah,
there's so many
but
like
there's nobody.
roadblocks.
But how do you know that? I
Yeah.
mean, nobody knows
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I hate to say goodbye, but
Oh.
Candace, thank you so much for
Well,
joining
this
us.
is so much fun.
It was so fun, and everyone should go read Candace's amazing piece in New York Magazine. Where can people find it? Like,
Online.
But also I'm doing a one-woman show,
tell
and
us.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it in Westport, Connecticut
Okay.
tomorrow, and then I'm doing it at Guildhall in East Hampton.
Amazing.
When are you doing
Wait,
that?
We'll be there.
We'll be there. We'll go.
July 18th.
Oh,
Okay. We have to
okay.
get
Next
tickets.
weekend we'll get tickets.
Okay, amazing. If
Right,
it's not
Friday.
sold out, amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, this is so much fun.
And
Oh, we
thanks
loved
everyone for listening to Excuse My Grandma, and we will see you next week.
Bye.